Hey, Jack.
The Development Control Forum will start at 10 a.m. this morning. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So, good morning everyone. My name is Toby Williams. I'm the East Team Development Manager for the Joint Planning Service, and I'm the chair of this meeting. I'd like to welcome you all to today's Development Control Forum taking place at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 23rd of July. The forum is in respect of application 24/01354/full at 137 and 143 Histon Road for the erection of 70 dwellings, and comes about through the receipt of a petition to remove proposed access points to Histon Road Recreation Ground from the development site, and also in respect of open space provision, BNG and other matters. I will assume that everyone participating in the forum this morning has read the petitioner's justification. We have received apologies from Councillor Bagent, Dryden, Pora and Young. Pora is now online, as I understand it. Thank you, Councillor Pora. Please advise if you know of any further apologies from other councillors when you're introduced to speak. The councillors present at the meeting, please introduce yourself. If I could start with those councillors or councillor in the room, please.
Yeah, Councillor Smart, so I'm Chair of Planning Committee. Did you say Councillor Bagent apologies? He's on holiday, I know. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Pora. And Councillor Mike Todd-Jones. Great, and I've just noticed that I think Councillor Simon Smith may be joining the meeting. Simon, if you're there, could you introduce yourself, please? Councillor Smith, I can see you. Can you hear me? Can you? That's great, thanks, Simon. Okay, I don't think I've missed out. Councillor Smart.
Sorry, Chair, but
Councillor Payne.
Hello, I'm Councillor Payne. I'm a ward councillor for Castle Ward.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. We'll try and resolve the feedback issue as we proceed through the meeting. Have I missed any councillors out? I don't think so. Okay, great. So the officers permanently at the table for this meeting are Senior Planning Officer Aaron Coe, sitting to my right, Committee Manager Sarah Steed, who's going around the table at the moment, and the meeting producer Chris Connor. We're also joined by representatives of the applicant. Please could you introduce yourselves from Rob?
Hello, I'm Rob Preston, the agent from Cartagenas on behalf of the applicant KIP.
Henry?
Henry Charlton from Hill, also for KIP.
Jax?
I am Jacques van der Vever. I'm the program manager for the council and development team, and also sitting on behalf of KIP.
That's great, thank you. And we have a representative from the petitioners. Can you please introduce yourself?
I'm Katuli Lloyd.
Thank you, Katuli. If anyone does have any problems hearing me throughout the meeting as we proceed, and apologies for the early disruption, please just wave your wave your hands or type in the meeting chat. Right, I've got some housekeeping before we go into the forum. Again, I'd ask all participants to keep themselves muted unless they've been invited to speak by the chair, and to keep your backgrounds blurred if you're online. If you want to ask a question or get the attention of the chair, please raise your hand physically or virtually, and I will introduce you when you are able to speak. The chat function will be regularly checked by the chair and the committee manager. Please note that people who have followed the published link will only be able to watch the meeting and will not be able to participate, and there is a 20-second delay between the actual meeting and the meeting online. The meeting is being recorded, and it will be available for public viewing for 6 months from the date of the meeting. Right, the aims, Councillor Smart.
Interrupt, Chair. Oh, it works now. Can you hear me now? I'm back, yeah. So I may have missed item 3 of declarations of interest, but I might need to say that I'm Executive Councillor for Open Spaces and City Services with this item. So,
Councillor Smart, is there a problem with your microphone?
it's lighting up and my name is on it. So
Yeah, I think because people are listening also online, if you're turning to speak to people in the gallery, if you take your microphone round with you, then people online will be able to hear you as well as those in the gallery. Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Smart was... Councillor Smart, do you want to just repeat yourself with your microphone on,
yes,
please?
of course, Chair. So I'm, as a declaration of interest, item 3 on the agenda, I am Executive Councillor for Open Spaces and City Services.
Okay, thank you. I'll invite declarations of interest once from any other members once I've just run through the format of the meeting. So the aims of the forum are to allow early discussion of the planning issues and to explore the scope for agreement and compromise between all sides. The format of the forum is as follows. There's an introduction by the chair, and then we get to councillors' interests. There is then a presentation of the application by the applicant/agent, and that's principally to address the issues raised by the petitioners. The time given for that is up to 15 minutes. And then there is an opportunity for a presentation of the views of the petitioners against the application, again up to 15 minutes. We then turn to the planning case officer, Aaron Coe, who will give an update on the application. And then we'll turn to ward councillors. Councillor Cheney, I think you have up to 15 minutes to make any points. And then we turn to the section for members' questions and issues arising. We have up to 30 minutes for that section of the forum. And then there is some summing up by both sides and some final comments from me. So apart from Councillor Smart, do any other councillors have any declarations of interest? Bennett. Okay, thank you, Councillor Bennett. Any other councillors? Todd Jones. That's great, thank you. And Councillor Pora. And Councillor Smith. That's great, thank you, Councillor Smith. Right, I don't see any other hands up virtually or around the table. So I think at this point then, we'll now turn to the applicant agent to deliver your presentation. You have up to 15 minutes and the committee manager will advise you when your speaking time is up. So please try and keep to time if at all possible. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me in the back? No? If I speak really loudly? Okay. Cambridge Investment Partnership was founded in 2017. It's a partnership between the City Council and Hill as developer. The clear aim of the partnership is to deliver high-quality council homes, market sale homes, commercial and community facilities across the city. And since 2017, the partnership has delivered over 600 new council homes, including the first, this year, Passive House accredited council homes in Cambridge. As a result of this, KIP has also contributed 8 million worth of Section 106 contributions, which support local amenities and services. And I just want to mention that additionally, it's an investment partnership and it creates a financial return to the council to facilitate service delivery across the city as well. ATS Moquettes is a site positioned directly off of Histon Road and 1.5 miles north of the Cambridge city centre, and it's proposed that we're delivering 70 new homes in the area, which will include 28 affordable homes for the council. Throughout this presentation, we thought it was vital to put across the process that the site has been through and to provide some context for the planning environment. So the first 4 slides will be focused on planning policy and consultation. We'll then go on to discuss the submitted material and the changes that have been made following the consultation period, before finally proposing our thoughts on the petitioner's recommendations and the key benefits that the scheme will bring to the area.
So the site forms the majority of allocation R2, which is identified in the local plan to deliver new housing. This is a highly sustainable brownfield site, very well connected to local facilities, services, bus routes and cycle routes into the city. The local plan, as well as paragraphs 123 and 128 of the NPPF, are clear that efficient use of brownfield sites such as this needs to be made. This is in part reflected by the updated and emerging allocation of the site, which is seeking to deliver a greater number of homes across just the application site, and the retained ATS land. That's 110 homes in total. In light of the site's opportunities, its sustainable credentials, and the urgent need for new housing, particularly affordable housing, the approach to this application has been to deliver a high quality but efficient development. In delivering an efficient scheme, we have nevertheless considered the site's other characteristics, such as the need to retain trees and respect relationships with existing neighbouring homes. In the context of delivering open space, we've had regard to policy 68 of the local plan. Whilst the policy promotes on-site provision wherever possible, it acknowledges that there are circumstances where it is not possible or suitable to deliver the full informal public open space requirement for the development on-site. The subject site falls into this category given the sustainable central location, the importance of making best free use of a brownfield site for affordable and market housing delivery, and considering the site directly adjoins and is able to achieve direct access to an existing area of open space, the Histon Road Recreation Ground. The applicant has nevertheless sought to maximise the quality of open space being proposed on site, and the revised layout and landscaping plans show an attractive green link through to the recreation grounds, and a pocket park near the centre of the proposal, which serves as an informal space for sitting out and to promote general well-being and community interaction. However, the proposed development does not seek to provide an expansive area of on-site open space suited to more formal recreational purposes. This would not be suitable in this context. It would not be able to compete with what was already readily accessible and available within the recreation grounds, and therefore it serves a separate function. In agreement with officers through the pre-application engagement, the deficit of informal open space provision would be addressed through off-site enhancements to the Histon Road recreation ground, with the delivery and ongoing management to be secured through the Section 106 agreement, and this fully accords with Policy 68. The proposed development will also deliver the requisite Section 106 contributions towards local infrastructure, such as healthcare and schools, to ensure the impacts arising from the development are mitigated. This is being reviewed with officers and the relevant consultees.
Cambridge Investment Partnership engaged neighbouring residents at key stages of the project. Consultation website was created on the 17th of November 23 and gained 192 views by the time the consultation closed on the 15th of December. Additionally, an in-person event attended by 45 people was held locally on the 27th of November and followed by a virtual event on the 28th of November to ensure that local community had different opportunities to engage with our team. During this period, flyers were also delivered to over 1,000 properties in the local area. These also included a free phone number, and that was once again to ensure that people could have their say on development. In terms of feedback, 52 responses were received. The result of the pre-application public consultation included that the majority of residents, 66%, either supported or strongly supported the principle of redeveloping a vacant brownfield site to provide homes. 70% stated it would be important or very important to deliver new affordable housing, and 72% supported or strongly supported creating attractive routes through the development and providing easily accessible cycle storage to promote walking and cycling as the primary modes of transport. Once the application was submitted, concerns were raised by the local residents regarding the proposed connections between the play area and the new development. Due to this, a further public meeting was held on the 23rd of May, and there over 70 local residents attended this discussion. Okay, next one. The key issues raised throughout the process, just as a summary, concern regarding the links through the development, becoming a throughfare to the supermarket north of the site, concerns regarding the effect on the safety of the play space a new access may have, impacts of a new development on local infrastructure, the existing antisocial behaviour in the area. There was strong support for the sustainability aspects of the scheme, and there was a recognition of how important the delivery of affordable housing is.
So throughout the pre-planning process, KIP was involved in 16 meetings with planning officers from the City Council. These include the following, which is 5 pre-application meetings, 1 design review panel, 2 housing team meetings, and 1 secure by design meeting. The proposed development has been reviewed closely with officers and has evolved, going through several iterations to improve the proposal, to address key issues, and so that it is considered to be policy compliant. Within these meetings, a link to the existing recreation ground has been seen as a big opportunity for this scheme for several reasons. This includes wider permeability and promoted sustainable travel, connectivity of the development to the open space, social cohesion and integrating the new neighbourhoods with the wider community, and also enhancing security through passive surveillance.
So this brings us on to the original submission. This proposed 70 new homes ranging from 1-bedroom apartments to 4-bedroom houses, including 28 affordable homes, 2 new pedestrian access points to the Histon Road recreation ground, a 27.48% net gain in biodiversity, and approximately 73% energy efficiency improvements against building regulations and exceeding policy on water usage. And finally, and then secondly, this brings us to the resubmitted material, which was resubmitted in July, earlier this month. This proposed one link to the neighbouring recreation ground that does not enter the play space, an improved biodiversity net gain score, and reduce the number of single aspect homes from 7 to 6. Following public concerns raised regarding the connection's effect on the safety of the recreation ground and the possible loss of amenity space that the path may cause, we have listened carefully to these concerns and have now removed the central access from the scheme. This amendment is considered to strike the optimum balance, whereas the current access to the recreation ground and Histon Road is directly onto a main road, with poor visibility and located close to access drives to properties, and therefore has greater potential for conflicts between users. The retained eastern access would be a safer new route into and out of the recreation ground onto a quieter secondary street, more like the other accesses to the recreation ground to the south and west. Therefore, the retention of at least one access point would help to promote safe pedestrian connections and is very important to proper planning of the wider urban area. However, by removing the central access and retaining the eastern access, this helps provide a connection which avoids any impact in terms of needing to make any significant changes to the recreation ground or compromising the play area. The former central access of the site has now become a pocket park that maintains a visual connection to recreation ground, whilst continuing to serve as a green space near the centre of the development to provide relief from the built form and serve as an informal sitting out space for community use and well-being. It therefore serves a specific purpose and does not seek to re-provide the type of expansive open space better suited to play and recreation, which is already accessible within the recreation ground. Just a bit more detail on the revised on-site open space. So we have kept and improved the eastern access to the recreation ground. The consultant team have worked hard to make this access as attractive as possible through thoughtful landscape design in the area. The access footpath is flanked on both sides by a generous strip of ornamental shrub planting, and the line of trees also serves to further enclose the path and provide a green canopy. Pedestrians will feel as if they are entering into a naturalistic landscaped area before arriving at the recreation ground. As a result of this change, the site is still integrated within the neighbourhood and maintains its permeability while also manages concerns regarding the central access to the recreation ground. This link also removes the requirement for residents to walk along Histon Road to gain access to the recreation ground, allowing for a safer journey, especially when with children. The proposed access link involves a reconfiguration of the rail fencing within the recreation ground to ensure that no one entering the recreation ground can walk directly into the play area. Furthermore, no new gates are proposed into the play area within the new route, so the means of accessing the existing Hello? No. Can you hear me all right? The overall extent... Oh, perfect. I'll just restart that sentence. Furthermore, no new gates are proposed into the play area within the new route, so the means of accessing the existing play space remains the same. The overall extent of the changes to the recreation ground will be minor. In order to ensure that we are proposing is deliverable, the scheme has been reviewed by our traffic and arboricultural consultants, who confirm that it's a workable solution in its current form.
So, summary of changes recommended. So, in terms of reviewing the places put forward by the petitioner, eliminate new access points into the park. Throughout the meetings held with planning and urban design professionals, the link to the recreation ground has always been an opportunity for this site to embed itself within the local community. Through the materials we submitted, a more sensitive approach to the connection has been adopted, which provides the optimum outcome by helping to appease both those in favour of the connection and those against. The second is reduce the number of homes being provided. This had previously been addressed. However, as an allocated brownfield site in a highly sustainable location, it needs to deliver affordable and market housing at an efficient density whilst meeting the other policy requirements. The current scheme does this while complying with Policy 68 in terms of open space provision and addresses the infrastructure demands of the development through the appropriate Section 106 contributions. Third, a play area / playground should be designated as an integral part of the development. As above, as previously stated, Policy 68 will not require a play area to be provided on site, and to duplicate play facilities would not be suitable. Looking at proper planning of the area as a whole, connecting to and enhancing existing facilities as a destination rather than replicating and leading to lesser quality should be the aim. Number 4, trees to be planted down the development side of the boundary with the park. Delivering a further 1 or 2 rows of trees would significantly affect the efficiency and viability of the site, and would also result in a dense and dark boundary which would be heavily overshadow gardens. Further tree planting along this boundary would also reduce the degree of passive surveillance to the recreation ground, and that's something that's been promoted by the Secure by Design review in the interests of public safety and is a requirement under Local Plan Policy 56. And then the 5th, considering building a community school on this land rather than dwellings. I think it's covered previously by other points, but the key being here that this is an allocated site for housing in the local plan, and that is what it is being brought forward as. And just to finalize, the key benefits of the scheme which is being brought forward, there'll be significant Section 106 contributions which go towards local amenities and service, 28 new affordable homes for the council, uplift in biodiversity for the area well above policy compliant levels, increased connectivity and integration with the introduction of one link to the recreational ground, a full 70 new energy efficient homes on this previously developed land, and widening of the footpath along Histon Road directly in front of the scheme, promoting safer access down that roadway.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you, ahead of time. Great, so we now turn to the petitioners. If you could deliver your presentation, you've got up to 15 minutes, Kachuli, and the development, so the committee manager will advise you when your speaking time's up. Thank you.
So we're here because of the proposed plans by Hills Development and Cambridge City Council, jointly KIP, to create access points into and thus annex part of the Histon Road recreation ground. This goes against the original covenants from 1886 in place on the land, and also against the original reason for purchase. The Cambridge City Council minutes in 1932 say it is the only available site in this neighbourhood for a children's recreation ground, for which there is a growing need in the district. The population has more than doubled since 1932, and green spaces are being swallowed up by developers for the benefit of overseas investors and those with property portfolios. At grassroots level, if you'll excuse the pun, children need space for physical and mental well-being. By creating connecting access points, KIP are slicing off and segregating part of the children's play area. Children should be free to play in a space and in a safe and private space without being restricted or having to concede and share that space with the general public. Indeed, it is not for Hills to dictate or comment on how children's imaginations should develop in imaginative play areas. They are property developers, not child psychologists. Hidden paths, secret dens, blackberry bushes, and muddy puddles. This is all children need to spark their imaginations. Committee. Hills are being greedy developers. This whole application is a sham. Their cover letter doesn't answer any of our solicitor, Richard Buxton's points, nor really any other points. It's just a waffle. And the 80 extra documents are unsatisfactory in any change. And all this has been cooked up by the officers in conjunction with the developers as a simple, greedy attempt to get more development and cut out open space. They can provide green space on site, and they are choosing not to. The local community should not have to suffer, and we need you, committee, to protect us. I'm sure you all know how much public objection there has been to these access points, but let me cover some of the points from the applicant's waffling cover letter here. Point 1. KIP's proposal to make redundant a chunk of well-used shrub woodland and therefore cause a loss of amenity for the playground for the sake of an eastern access point is unacceptable. KIP says there will be a reconfiguration of the railings to provide a more welcoming route. This welcoming route comes at the expense of the existing, not theoretical or prospective community. A significant part of playground space will be lost, and please bear in mind that the play area stretches the whole length of the Histon Road Recreation Ground. It's not just where there's a swing. And the woodland section to the east of the pathway will become inaccessible and cut off from the main section.
Julie, sorry to interrupt you. Would it help if we brought up on the screen the latest plans so people can understand what you're speaking to? Rob, if you could do that, I think that would be useful. Thank you. It's a simple question, but where technology is involved, it's never straightforward. Apologies. That's great. Thanks, Rob. Please continue.
Is that the one where you can see their proposed fencing?
This is I think this is the latest plan with the eastern access only. It looks like Rob is zooming in on the relevant part.
Yeah. Okay, because also on another document that you had, you could see the fencing dividing those sections. Yeah, I think that's the one, yeah. Shall I start again? The cover letter claims the revised plan also indicates how this will have a minimal impact upon the broad layout of the park. I query the phrase minimal impact if KIP are slicing off a chunk of woodland. There should be no impact at all. Point 2, there will be a loss of amenity of the much valued football-basketball pitch. The proposed eastern access point will sweep from the development out into the park, right down along the football-basketball pitch. As a consequence, there will be significantly reduced enjoyment of the pitch and, in a worst-case scenario, will render it barely usable. Children will be fearful to kick a ball, afraid to hit passers-by using the access point, and if an accident does occur, who will take responsibility? If a child kicks a ball over the fence, it will be difficult and time-consuming to retrieve. Finally, parents who want to support a game from the sidelines will be hindered from doing so. Committee, KIP are preventing these youngsters who, often without gardens and play areas of their own, who rely heavily on this piece of land to let off steam, grow and develop, preventing them not only from enjoying freedom of movement in this area, but they are also pushing them off the land in total. This is insidious annexation. Point 3, the proposed landscaping still seems to provide a route towards the railings of the development where there would have been the central western access point. Just to interrupt, you might want to put up illustrative landscape master plan if you can find it. KIP claim they have removed the western access point to the recreation ground. However, on the illustrative landscape master plan, there is a cursing path running south from the middle of the development towards the west that, if constructed, would bisect the current recreation area. A landscape path in the recreation ground runs to meet a fenced railing.
Sorry to interrupt you. A member of the public's put their hand up.
Is that the illustrative
Is that the illustrative plan?
landscape master plan?
Yeah. I think that's what we're speaking to at the moment.
Yeah, if you zoom up, yeah, you can see the the pathway, the landscape path in the recreation ground runs to meet a fenced railing. If you just move, it's actually top left of the screen where there's a tiny little, in the middle, sort of centre. You could perhaps put the cursor so that people could see it. You know where I'm talking about, I presume. Yeah, it looks very suspiciously like the developer abiding their time to create more access points in the near future. The local community remain very sceptical. Point 4. KIP's proposal goes against the Cambridge City Council's own biodiversity survey of 2021. The main analysis on pages 195 to 204 clearly states that there should not be further tree planting in the recreation ground, but selected felling, replacement within the existing woodland areas, and to the corners further wildflowers which require sunlight. However, KIP's bio-enhancement plans plant trees and bulbs over all of the existing 50 square metres of wildflower area in the park, which is the removal of an existing biodiversity feature. This is along with the loss of amenity of the grasslands for community recreation, for kites, cricket, volleyball, rounders, picnics, relaxation, etc. The biodiversity survey includes the recommended plans for the next 10 to 20 years for the park, and it supports our position, not the developers. Point 5. The exploitation of the recreation grounds BNG is unlawful and wrong. The increase in KIP's BNG is unsatisfactory. The Council is aware that the statutory requirement is to achieve 10% BNG, which has been stretched by the Council within its ARC area to aim for 20% BNG. Schedule 7A of the Environment Act 2021 sets out the tiered priority. 1, on-site, then 2, off-site on registered sites, finally 3, commuted contributions credits. The clear priority is for on-site provision. The applicant's meagre increase from the original and laughable 3.93% to 8.13% is still below the required 10%. Remember, committee, KIP have the space. Point 6, KIP's total disrespect for the community. The cover letter talks an awful lot about community and connectivity, yet KIP are totally unconcerned with listening to or contributing to the community, just exploiting what's already there. KIP claims the public consultation has enabled the applicant and project team to better understand the specific reasons for the concerns raised. The public consultation stood firm on wanting 0 access points and 0 loss of amenity, but for some reason this hasn't been documented or addressed. KIP's response at the bottom of page 8 of the cover letter is pure waffle. But as for principle, there is no need for connectivity with the proposed development. As KIP and Rob Preston himself has already said today, what the proposed development does not seek to do, on the other hand, is to provide an expansive area of on-site open space suited to more formal recreation purposes. This would not be able to compete successfully with what is already readily accessible and available within the recreation ground. Well, if it is readily accessible, then they don't need to make it any more accessible to those with the privilege of living in the new development than for any other members of the public by creating access points. Point 7, finally, and what is perhaps most extraordinary in the cover letter, is that KIP state that these are not their final plans. They only seek approval of the principle, and then they're going to iron out all the other points later. And how will these details be fine-tuned later? Who will oversee it? The community find it extremely unlikely that KIP would involve them in any future discussions or negotiations if any planning permission is granted. Committee, I'm sure you know full well the scale of opposition to access points in this development. The community are up in arms and intend to fight access points every step of the way. So we would urge you, encourage the applicant to go back to the drawing board and take out all access points. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Kachuli. So we now turn to the planning officer to provide an update on the application. Aaron, you have up to 10 minutes. I've also asked Aaron if he could show some photographs of some of the open space that's been discussed this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby, and good morning all. So I will now provide an update on the planning application. The planning application was received and made valid on the 19th of April 2024. Neighbours and statutory consultees were notified and consulted on the planning application on the 22nd of April. Several site notices were displayed on streets surrounding the site and within the recreation ground itself on the 29th of April 2024. The original consultation period expired on the 23rd of May 2024, and within that period 102 representations were received, 98 objections, 1 letter of support and 3 neutral comments. A number of technical objections have been received during the course of the applications, and the applicants have submitted a revised package to address these issues, and a reconsultation period has commenced and will expire on the 31st of July 2024. The applicants have engaged with officers through an extensive pre-application process, and the scheme has been presented to the design review panel at pre-application stage, and a members briefing as well has taken place with City Council committee members, also at pre-application stage. As we've heard this morning from both the applicant team and the petitioner, there are various points for discussion at this forum, and these consist of the access points arrangement to the recreation ground, open space provision, biodiversity net gain, car parking provision, the density of the development, and the provision of infrastructure, facilities and services as well. I'm not in the meeting itself to share the slides. I don't know, Rob, if you can just provide, I think you're still in control of the screen. Just on Google Maps, within the recreation ground itself, to show that arrangement.
Is that you done?
Yes.
Okay, I'll sit back over. I think it's fine, Councillor Bennett. Thank you. I think we'll share them. We'll proceed, but we'll put them up on the display in the chamber as well as we continue. So now we move to City Councillor Payne. You've asked to speak at the meeting. You have up to 15 minutes as a ward councillor to speak, and the committee manager will advise when the speaking time is up. So please, over to you.
Thank you very much. Is it possible to ask first whether, I don't know if Aaron's the right person, whether you could just talk us through what these new set of proposals are for the one access point? Because I haven't seen that document that you're sharing, and I'm not sure others have either.
Yes, as the planning agent Rob Preston explained in his presentation, one access point is now proposed in the, I haven't got control, but on the eastern side of the development. So as originally submitted, there was going to be a central open space with an access point through the middle of the children's play space. But following a number of objections and concerns raised, that central access has been designed out of the scheme. And there will now just be one point of access from the eastern side of the development.
So when you say the eastern side, so I don't have a compass in my head, is that the side nearest to Histon Road? And then running down kind of south downwards to then intersect the railings as they already are, and then come out into the pathway. And all of the shrubland, woodland No, thank you, that's helpful. I think for me, one of the biggest concerns and why I'm here really is that I think it's really important, and I'd really urge the council going forward to see this as an issue that doesn't just affect Arbury Ward. The fact the petition is here brought by a Castle Ward resident, I think shows that this public space is absolutely critical for us. And I've just been kind of going back through the chain of events here, as obviously this proposal has been quite a long time in coming. So going right back until July 2023, that's when Castle Ward councillors were first made aware. But at that point, I was told that Arbury councillors have had a briefing about what this development would look like. And also the only residents association to be engaged with was the Histon Road Area Residents Association, not any of the people who live surrounding the recreation ground. And so it's myself and councillor. Can you hear me again? No, that's better. So it was myself and Councillor Nesta who had to ask back in July last year for Castle Ward councillors and also the Castle Ward Residents Associations to be involved. So it was then not until September that those briefings first began. And so I think one of the reasons for this reaching this point is that people who use the recreation ground on the other side, who are absolutely going to be affected by this, haven't been talked to and consulted with. So we've ended up with a set of proposals where it feels like it's almost all or nothing, because what was presented with a footpath to basically cut in half a much valued play area was so shocking that public opinion is, just feel quite stressed by this. So I'd really urge us not to just see this as a development which affects Arbury. For instance, I wasn't told about this development today until I emailed Sarah yesterday to ask, is this happening? Because again, only Arbury have been informed, but of course it is really critical for us. So I just really push to make sure that those of us on the other side of the fence are consulted with in an equal manner. I think this has become a case of all or nothing. I think the idea of the access point to cut the recreation ground in half fundamentally misunderstands what that space is there for and the nature of the space. I'd like to see the plans in a bit more detail for one access point, and I think where I might be a little bit different to Kajuli is that I think a compromise is possible. For those of us who live around the outside of the recreation ground, we do enjoy that easy access that avoids Histon roads. And I think there are many residents who would want exactly the same consideration for our new residents on the other side. But I think it is important that access point doesn't devalue the space for everyone, because if we are cutting up and limiting the space that's provided, that won't be as good for our new residents as well as existing ones. So I very much hope that we can move forward today to find a compromise that doesn't affect the space in a negative way, but does allow access. I would really support change 4 in the petition for the extra row of trees. I think the point about keeping surveillance over the play area actually is not really what we would want. I think for many parents who take their children there, the idea of it being overlooked by other residents would be quite concerning. And I'd suspect that our new residents also would like private gardens, which also aren't overlooked. So I'd really support change 4 there to increase and double the line of trees around it. For me, the biggest concern, and something which I hope the planning committee will pick up when this does come to planning, is that this also looks at rejecting the requirements of our own local plan. So the suggestion of borrowing the open space is something that the local plan doesn't allow, and the new development doesn't include the required level of open space within there. To me, that's quite shocking. That's a local plan that across 2 councils we've voted on and we've supported, and that's worked up very carefully over many, many years. And so to me, to make a decision to depart from that should be really quite significant. And I'm not sure 60, 70 dwellings gives the requirement for that. I worry that we'll set a precedent here going forwards, that it's okay to just overturn the local plan because the council's brought forward its proposals itself, and I think that's something we should handle with real concern. There needs to be a very good reason for doing that, and I think we need to be very careful to not set a planning precedent that developments can overturn those statutories that are already in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Smith, you weren't down on the agenda to speak in this section of the meeting. Had you intended to raise any additional issues on this part of the agenda as a ward councillor? It's fine, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Okay, so we now move to the member questions section of the meeting. Members of the City Planning Committee are reminded to express no opinion upon any aspect of today's presentation content, the developers' proposals, or to any responses coming out of this DCF meeting, which might give rise to a view that you have a closed mind to the proposals or the application. Open questions are encouraged to add value for today's purpose. So we have up to 30 minutes, and I'd be grateful if the committee manager could just give me a prod when that period is up. So I see Councillor Smart, you have your hand up.
My question, Chair, so it relates to access from new developments, potential new developments to existing spaces. And we've seen this before in Planning Committee with new developments. So I can think of 2 or 3 occasions in previous applications. And sometimes local residents that are already there don't want the access to happen, or sometimes they do. So I just wondered if the planning officer, the case officer about this, responsible for this case, could talk a bit more about our policy with regard to those access points, because I think it'd be useful just to have that as a starting point. Thanks, Chair.
Aaron?
Thank you, Toby. Thank you, Councillor Smart, for the question. So the applicants, as I've said, have undertaken pre-application discussions, and this was a key point of discussion through that process. And it was the urban design team, the landscape architect representing the council, and myself that were really promoting access points, more than one. One within the centre of the site to benefit the future residents and existing residents that might want to wander through the new development. But it's a national and local planning policy requirement to ensure permeability and connectivity from new development proposals to existing open spaces and sustainable transport modes are available in accordance with those policy requirements. So that is why it was a key driver of officers to encourage the developer team to include more than one access point. Notwithstanding that advice, obviously the response of the local community and various consultation responses through the application process to date, we have given weight to those comments and feel like a balance has been struck by providing just one access point that's been enhanced and improved in design terms in engagement with officers, and that's where we are to date and why it was supported by officers as part of the scheme. Thank you.
So I think just more for residents than anything else, but just to say that, so what happens here is that, over a period of time, sometimes years, you get different people pushing in different directions. I'm speaking as sort of an experienced chair of planning committee here. So planning officers might be pushing in one direction for so-called permeability, or, letting people travel to and fro between things. And residents pushing in another direction maybe, or the same direction. And then we come to a scheme on the table, as so we call it in planning committee, when it comes to planning committee as an application. And then, you can imagine members of planning committee might say, well, why can't we do this? And then you get told that, well, actually that was already proposed some time ago, but that was pushed back, and this is what we've got today. So I'm just preparing everyone really for the fact that what happens is it's a very dynamic process where we, from start to finish, and we finally get to planning committee and say yay or nay on an application, that we're hoping that this particular, where we are today, this meeting, is a very important meeting in terms of trying to work out what the best way forward is for all concerned and get the best result, the most robust result for everyone. Because when planning committee make a decision, that's basically it. It's very difficult to reverse a planning committee decision. So that's what I'd say to everyone, including members, is say your piece now, obviously without compromising, if you're on planning committee, what you think about it. But let's just get it all out in the open today and discuss it openly. Thanks.
Here it is. Thank you, Councillor Smart. I see Councillor Bennett, you have your hand up. Thanks, Councillor Bennett. I think I'll turn to the applicants to initially attempt to address that question, if possible, please, Rob. And then I will follow up with other people if they wanted to contribute.
Yeah, sure. Okay. What we have looked at, we've done a wider assessment of the urban area and where the likely desired routes are in terms of travelling across that space, obviously to promote walking, as Aaron's alluded to. At the moment, the park obviously does have benefits from access from the east to west and the south. It doesn't have any connections at all to the north, which means that anyone moving in a general kind of a south-west, north-east direction, you know, needs to walk a longer route round or via Histon Road, and we consider that to be a sort of a slightly more unsafe route to go directly out to the east onto Histon Road. There's a lot of parking areas and access drives there. The new route would go directly out to the northeast of the development, which is just behind the basketball court there, and it would connect to the existing paths to the south. So you've got this ability to travel, you know, directly to the north across that space. If I transition to, I'm just going to open the landscape plan. Let me share that again. So just when it loads up, you can see the route, which is sort of moving, you know, connecting from the existing path in the recreation ground to the south and sort of moving in that northeast direction. So there's an alternative route to get there to Histon Road, along Histon Road. And then it gets a bit safer further up Histon Road, because you don't have as many access drives, you know, fronting properties, for example, as well. So that's the sort of route that we've sort of aimed to enhance. Has that answered the question enough, or do you need to clarify anything further? Okay.
Do we look at the CGI? Sorry. Shall we, Rob, do you want to show the CGI that's in the presentation of the access route? Yeah. Just to show, I hope this image will show its delineation from the road itself, because how we've set it out is that there's landscape buffers on either side of the path, and it's also tree lined. So you're right obviously you're right in what you're saying about 7-year-olds may not be road aware, but as you can see in that bottom right image, we have distributed and separated the lane from the access, and also that access way is a secondary access to limited parking down there, so it shouldn't be a busy access route anyway. And then Rob, if you just go up in the presentation too, there's a more, on a different slide, there's a more zoomed in version of a CGI, just showing the access route as it gets towards the actual recreation ground, and you can see there is a green area, a triangle towards the recreation ground where the two areas meet. I hope that shows or answers your question around the safety. Oh yes, and of course on the access point there will be weighted gates to put off any vehicles or bikes or e-bikes using that area, so it will be very safe for the children. Just on that point, sorry, Councillor, we had a pre-app with the disability access team, and the weighted gates will be done to, I think it's ensure 5 seconds closing time to ensure that they do work for wheelchair accesses. Okay. Okay.
Okay, I think we'll leave that comment concern for the applicants to address separately. Kachuli, do you have anything that you wanted to add to this particular aspect of the debate at all?
Do you mean just in this particular regard, or do you mean my conclusion?
In this regard.
Yes, I think that anybody who's buying a property in the development should be buying it as is, if that means that the access point is going down Histon Road, then that is their choice, and that it should not come at the community's disadvantage to have to be accommodating them. If KIP really care that much, they can invest some money in putting some simple railings down the side of the pavement on Histon Road, which would effectively create the same kind of access point as they're creating to just cut right into the woodland shrubbery. This is very simply done. There's already a pavement there. You just need to put some high railings. As regards Simon Smith's fairly melodramatic response regarding removing the trees and shrubbery from that corner, he seems very concerned with needles and condoms, but he still doesn't mention anything about wildlife in the area. Also, does he realise that there are drug deals that go on daily in the whole of that park in the evenings, in the south section, not in the playground, in the bottom bit? The residents call the police, nobody comes. We tell the council, nobody comes. We have the council houses down by Aldi. There are knifings down there. There are various problems. The council simply don't care. And I think as soon as the KIP get their access point in, they're just going to turn their backs and leave the rest of the community to have to deal with any social disruption that we have coming from those social houses into the park. An increase in people is going to create more problems. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So I can see Councillor Todd Jones, you have your hand up. Thank you, Mike. I think I'll turn to the case officer first and then the applicants in terms of the questions.
Thank you for the question. So the first question about the open space and enhancement provision, I think it's important for everyone to note at this point, all of the proposals shown on this illustrative master plan are indicative and they are not giving any weight in sort of the determination of this application. The focus is on the red line, everything within the red line plan. So the 70 residential units, the details of what the enhancements will be off-site will be secured through Section 106 monies, and they would have to be allocated to projects and go through a formal process before they've got any form of permission. So that's something that everyone needs to bear in mind at this stage. And Policy 68, to Councillor Todd Jones' question, is the relevant policy. And Part B of that policy clearly says, in exceptional circumstances, if taking into account the accessibility, capacity of existing open space, and the circumstances surrounding the area. So in this instance, we've got a recreation ground immediately on the doorsteps of the application site. It would be illogical to not provide a connection for the future residents to benefit from this space. And in terms of meeting all of the other policy requirements for the future residents of this development. Clearly, there is an element of open space being proposed with a small pocket park and the new green buffers that are proposed, but the main area that will benefit the future residents is the recreation ground, and mitigation of significant financial contributions will be secured by the City Council to mitigate the impacts and pressures on these new open spaces by the new development. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Turn to the applicants.
Yeah, so just addressing the first point of your response, thanks, Councillor Todd Jones. In terms of the amenity of the occupants of the proposed development, I think that's absolutely right. We have sought to ensure a development which creates a high quality living environment for the users of the proposed development as well, and providing connections. Regarding the pre-application discussions, I think Aaron's kind of covered most of the points really of those discussions. But Policy 68 does allow for circumstances where the informal open space provision could be provided off-site. In this case, we do have the ability to directly connect to the recreation ground. In terms of the spaces we provided on site, we've sought to provide quality spaces suitable for sitting out, for well-being, community interaction, but not sort of a large area of open space with play facilities, because that is readily available in the recreation ground already, and the policy does encourage improving connections to existing facilities. So that's exactly what we're seeking to do, and that's what we did agree through those discussions in accordance with the policy. I think I've addressed all of the comments there. Unless there's anything else, please let me know.
And again, for fairness, in terms of kind of answering the questions, I turn to the petitioners. Kachuli, was there anything you wanted to add in terms of the petitioner's view?
Yes, I would just like to say that obviously the recent open spaces surveys, Cambridge surveys, have already said that there is no surplus open space, green space in Castle or Arbury. We're already at a maximum. So if you're going to be introducing a whole new set of residents to a community, you need to provide your own green space. Go back and look at the paperwork. There is no surplus green space in these two areas. How much do you want to push people sort of into a corner? What happens if there's another lockdown? How are people supposed to be able to maintain their mental health if they're being squashed into a small space? That's my main point, and the point is that fundamentally you have your own space. Use it. You are choosing not to. You can waffle and use whatever kind of little loopholes there are. The point is it's greedy. The point is it's a sham. The point is you have zero respect for the community.
Sorry, if we could just, for members of the public, if we could just, people online won't be able to hear, and we could just tone down the clapping, please.
There was general applause. I just wanted to say that, yes, there is the space. They're being greedy. They're choosing not to. They're using whatever loopholes they can. And that's the only reason there's an access point. It's total BS, whatever other reasons they give for it. It's simply so that they can maximise their profit and not provide any green space of their own. And I hope that the committee can see through this.
Okay, thank you. I think for members of the public, when this application comes to planning committee, matters such as profit and greed are not considerations for the planning committee. They're not material planning considerations that will be before committee as a matter of fact. Do any other members have questions? Councillor Smart.
So since there's been conversation between people, something that's come up is a sort of point of view, and I'd just like to check that point of view, really, re-policy and the application. So, so firstly for the case officer and secondly for the applicant. So it seems that there's a sort of proposal that we have one play area for the application and one play area for the other residents. Now, policy-wise, would that be okay, or suggested way forward? And secondly, for the applicant, I suppose, does the applicant feel that it's possible to bring forward a proposal with houses on, so maybe a smaller number of houses and have a play area for those houses on that site, or possibly, I don't really know the ins and outs of this site completely, but maybe you have a higher block of flats or something to get more dwellings in, and then the space that's left over becomes the play area. I don't know. But so those two questions come to mind, just to explore those points of view really that have come forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. So I think the first question I'll turn to the case officer, and the second question, the applicants.
Thank you, Toby. So all of these matters are weighed up in the planning balance and in the assessment of the application. And as I've said, this site is immediately adjacent to the recreation ground, where there is exceptional facilities that can be enhanced through the 106 monies that will be secured from this scheme, whether that's new play equipment, new paths are obviously very important to connect as well, but everything has to be weighed up. We've got benefits in this scheme, 40% affordable housing policy, which meets policy. You have to weigh up the provision of open spaces going. If open space was needed on the development, then that will impact the number of affordable units secured for the council to through the application as well. So all of these different matters have to be assessed on their own merits, and in this instance, the applicants have put forward this scheme with a small open space on site, but then connection through to the existing recreation ground. But all consultees will give their comments, the landscape team, the streets and open spaces team, and the urban design team that also weigh up these matters as well. Thank you.
Okay, so the second part of the question to the applicants, why not more open space on site?
So yes, I'll just address that one. So we started the design process looking at the site. It's very much a blank slate, there's a lot of urban design considerations which go into creating the design. We have to look at the opportunities and constraints. We need to look at things like, the apartments that adjoin the site, the fact that it is relatively long and narrow in terms of its form. There's adjacent commercial uses as well. So we did look at different types of urban forms that we could put in, for example, additional apartments. We actually found that the only real sort of suitable part of the site for delivering higher density development was near the frontage, which is why the apartments are located as they are, and that positively addresses Histon Road. And we've gone for a sort of a slightly lower density scheme in terms of terrace housing to the rear of the site, which we also think is a pattern development which is consistent with the local area. Now, the challenge, of course, is ensuring that we can make most efficient use of the site for development to make sure we are providing the maximum benefits in terms of affordable housing provision, and that is a requirement of policy. And the approach we have therefore taken is to use an element of off-site open space provision in accordance with policy 68, and an agreement with officers through the pre-application discussions. And we've gone for a quality versus quantity sort of approach in terms of what's been provided on site, making sure those open spaces are high quality spaces for social interaction, for sitting out, but then of course the actual, the more recreational uses and children's play spaces are available within the recreation ground, so we can enhance those and ensure we're providing direct accessibility to that existing facility.
Thank you. I realise it was a question to the applicants and the case officers, but again, I turn to the petitioners. Have you got any further comment on this particular issue?
Yes, I don't really think that Rob Preston's actually answered the question. He's just repeated and waffled again. Of course you looked at the area as a blank canvas at the beginning. Who wouldn't? You're not providing maximum benefits in terms of any other infrastructure apart from just maximising the number of houses. You haven't actually answered why you wouldn't provide your own playground or green space. You're just not answering the question by choice.
Councillor Smart, did you have anything to come back on?
Excuse me. Hang on. I think the petitioner's right. My second question wasn't answered by the applicant clearly in sort of common sense language. I mean, I understand the answer because I work in planning, as it were, as a councillor. So, but you know, we could have another track at that answer, perhaps. I mean, the question was quite simple about, you know, the debate has gone in terms of maybe the application site should have its own play area. That's an interesting proposal because all play areas are open to all people, as I understand it in the city, pretty much. I mean, I know people tend to sort of think they belong to them, but they don't. So, but you know, the idea that there could be two play areas close together isn't, you know, it doesn't break the law. It can happen, I suppose. And I just wondered whether the applicant had considered that and whether they felt that was possible. I mean, I suppose the answer, actually, it's a rhetorical question, isn't it? Of course, it could be done. You could put one house on the site and have a huge, great play area, or, you know, it's just a matter of, I suppose you have to talk about what's commercially viable, or what's viable, full stop, really, in terms of what can be done with the site. But so I understand, as the petitioner said, the waffle part, but that's partly subtextually saying about, you know, what the parameters are of the site, but the applicant can have another go, I suppose, at satisfying the applicant, maybe, and me. Sorry, the petitioner and me.
Thanks, Councillor. I guess it does depend on what drops out of the particular standard as well, and whether that space would be a meaningful space. But do the applicants have anything else they wanted to kind of clarify in terms of rephrasing their answer?
I will try and clarify. I think the key thing here is it touches on what you said in terms of viability, obviously what you noted in terms of greed. I think it's a bit unfair to look at it that way. Obviously, we develop, and the idea of having this site as a KIP site is to make sure that the council has a vested interest in bringing this forward in the best way possible. Obviously, there's a lot of competing objectives. There is housing, which is key to the site, and we need to remember that. There's obviously also, you know, like you say, is there a new play park? Is there not? And generally speaking, when you're adjacent to an existing asset, it's a better proposal to uplift that asset than providing a secondary asset that maybe, you know, duplicates the expenditure in terms of ongoing maintenance and looking after that long term. It's always going to be divisive. We can't get around that. We're trying to tick a lot of boxes here in terms of delivering a sustainable housing, delivering number of houses that are, you know, financially viable to bring forward. And another thing to bear in mind is that, yes, we probably could do a play park on the site. That's going to have a lot of drop-in effects in terms of how the drainage connects and things look like, for example. There's lots of different aspects to development that's not as straightforward as there's houses or flats. But you know, we're trying to be sensitive to the area in developing, you know, terraces of houses. We're trying to get the unit numbers, and we're trying to make best use of assets as we go, while delivering sustainable housing. So, yeah, in short, yes, there is. We are trying to get a pragmatic approach to tick all the boxes here, and this is where we feel we are at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I'm conscious of time. I see that Councillor, I'll come back to you in a moment. I see that Councillor Bennett has got her hand up. So if you could make that the last question, then I'll come back to the applicants and the the petitioners. Thank you. Thank Councillor Bennett. I'll turn to the applicants if you could briefly address those points. I appreciate they're slightly off track in terms of the DCF itself, but if I think it would help if you could begin to address the points, please.
So on the the housing mix point, so we are, sorry, just going to bring the breakdown here. So 40% affordable housing, which equates to 28% dwellings, 60% market housing, 42 dwellings, apartments to be delivered at affordable rents, tenure. I don't know if there was any more specific information we wanted on that. I mean, we did review this with the housing officer and with officers extensively during the pre-application discussions, and that mix has been agreed with the officers also for their formal consultation response. So turning to the other points, we had a question, I think, about the pocket park and how that space would be used and designed. Obviously, we designed it as a sort of informal sitting out space. I know there was, I think, a concern you raised about sort of smoking areas and also whether there's any windows overlooking those public spaces. I mean, the public spaces are designed to be overlooked, you know, to improve natural surveillance as far as possible. And there will also be sort of defensive planting as well, so to ensure that the separation distances from open areas to windows as well. So hopefully that's addressed that point, but I can provide more information if you need. Secure by design, we've obviously reviewed the proposed development with the Secure by Design officer in preparing the application. I know there's obviously some points about things like the gates and suitability for wheelchair users. We have reviewed those, and you know, the specification of gates has been agreed. We will have a closer look at that in terms of the electric wheelchair users to make sure that that is, of course, suitable for all users. And then finally, I think there was a point about the play space and the rec grounds and the suitability of all users, including small children. Well, yes, I mean, the enhancements, I mean, in terms of the detail of the recreation ground enhancements will be confirmed through the Section 106 and conditions process at post-determination stage. And the intention is to undertake further public consultation at that point, and the details will be agreed with officers. But indeed, there is, certainly scope to ensure that, or to improve the play space facilities for small children and all types of users. I don't know if you've got anything more to add, Jack, or Henry, to that.
I think just on the on-site open space, I think we also want the pocket park to be treated as an informal area where people can bring out their toddlers and relax with them or just enjoy that space. There is a green buffer towards the back, so it should be a good environment for that age group. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'll turn to the petitioners. Are there any points you wanted to raise about these specific issues?
Yeah, I mean, I still don't think there's an answer. I think they've jumped on the word viable that was mentioned earlier, and they've decided to just use that instead of actually the expression which is profit margin. I assume that obviously none of the spreadsheets and none of the profit margins will be visible to the public, would they? That's the sort of question, because I think that's the issue with the community, is that we don't trust you, we don't believe you, and all of the above that I've already said. So we would actually need some sort of proof as to how tight those profit margins are, that you actually can't provide your own green space or your own playground. You still don't give any reasons apart from that. And then you say that if you put a playground in, it would affect drainage. Could I just have some sort of clarification on that?
Okay, I think I will allow that question, but this is the members' questions section. So if you could just briefly answer, please, then I think we're going to go to summing up.
It's fine. It's not specific to the playground. It's the orientation of the entire development. So if you place one thing, you move everything else around. It was just to sort of show that it has a knock-on effect on anything. It's not just a standalone move one thing and that's it.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Bennett, I realised there were 4 or 5 questions there. Does that kind of tie up for you in terms of those answers, the information that you were seeking or that you might expect to get at some future point? Okay, thanks, Councillor Bennett. I think I would invite the applicants to address that separately after the meeting in correspondence as a matter of clarity as to whether or not that's something that could be addressed as a potential concern. So that deals with the member questions section of the forum. So we now move to summing up. I will ask the applicants to sum up their points. You have up to 5 minutes.
So firstly, I just wanted to thank you for allowing us to attend this forum. From our point of view, it's been another really useful exercise, and we hope that we can come to a conclusion that is an overall balance of the concerns and positive raised today. I think to summarise our position, we will just focus slightly on our final slide, where I believe we covered items such as eliminating new access points to the Histon Road Rec Ground, reduced number of houses, a play area playground to be designed in the integral part of the development, should be an integral part of the development, and other matters such as the trees to be planted down the development side of the boundary, and to consider building a community school on this land rather than dwellings. I think firstly, eliminating new access points into Histon Road Recreation Ground Throughout the meetings that we've held with planners and urban designs throughout this time that we've discussed today, this has been seen as an opportunity to increase the connectivity of this site and to really embed it into its community, which we really want to do as a motivating factor for this scheme. Through the material resubmitted, a more sensitive approach to the connection has been adopted, which provides this optimum outcome by helping to appease both those in favour of the connection and hopefully those against. Regarding matters such as reducing the number of houses, integrating a playground into the development and trees to be planted down the development side of the boundary, and the consideration of building a community school on this land, we do feel like that using brownfield sites in a sustainable location as efficiently as possible to deliver affordable market housing is a really key aspect of the scheme. And the balance in design and in terms of urban design and landscape design, we feel that meets this, makes the development as holistic as possible. The current scheme does this while trying to, and we comply with policy 68 in terms of open space provision, and furthermore, addressing the infrastructure demands of the development through the appropriate section 106 contributions. That's my summing up. I don't know, Jacques, Rob, if you had anything else?
No, I've nothing to add further to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Henry. So we now turn to the petitioners. To sum up your points, again, you have up to 5 minutes, Kachuli.
Yes, I'd just like to go back to the original e-petition that was made and signed by 136 people that was against any access points into the area. I said, although we are not against a development of some kind on this land, we are against any access points from the development into any part of the Histon Road Recreation Ground. The land in question is one of Cambridgeshire's protected green spaces, and it's under covenant. In its current form, it is a safe space for children. There is no reason why the Histon Road Recreation Ground should be diminished or compromised for an access point, especially since the only reason to do so is to maximise building plots and profits for CIP, and by having to avoiding having to provide any green space or playground of their own. Fundamentally, we all know that the best time to redo any plans is before any project begins, so that would have been a year ago. CIP have already made their plans and they don't want to budge. They don't want to change them, it's too much hassle. As the applicant just said, it would involve too much reorientation of the entire development to put in a playground, and then that would affect drainage. That's the point. They can't be bothered, they've already made their plans. The applicant has assumed that both open space and BNG can be provided for off-site, specifically in the RECT. No justifications have been put forward for why public users should bear the burden of the rearrangement of the park to enable this commercial development. Stripping away the detail, development's fine, we don't want access points. Committee, I'm sure you know full well the scale of opposition to the access points. We remain up in arms and we're going to fight you every step of the way, and we will enjoy it. So our advice would be, go back to the drawing board and get rid of all the access points. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so that concludes the question statements, summaries. I've just got some final remarks. Following the meeting, the committee manager will draft up the notes of the meeting, and these will be published on the Development Control Forum meeting webpage, and they will also be appended to the planning officer's report. The planning case officer should contact the applicants after the meeting to discuss the outcome of the meeting and to follow up any further action that is necessary. The applicant will be encouraged to keep in direct contact with the petitioners and to seek their views on any proposed amendments. The council will follow its normal neighbour notification procedures on any amendments to the application, along with other individuals who may have made representations on the application. The petitioner's representatives will be informed of the date of the meeting in which the application is to be considered by the planning committee and of their public speaking rights. The committee report will be publicly available 5 clear days before the committee meeting. So thank you. That now concludes the Development Control Forum. Please could the meeting producer end the live stream and confirm when the live stream's been ended. Thanks.